They finally got him. After 7 uneasy days, a man in cuffs, eyes drained, shoulders low, a whole town exhaling at once. He'd been the shadow in the tree line, the figure on a church camera in camo with a long gun and a drum-style mag. People had locked their doors, checked their porches twice, and stared at headlines that felt worse every hour. Because this story didn't start with a chase. It started with a baby left on a stranger's porch, still strapped into a car seat, alive. That image alone felt like a scream. And then the next discovery turned everything into a nightmare. For relatives gone in a quiet stretch of Lake County, officials said he knew them. That's when a search became a manhunt, and a community sat on raw nerves waiting to hear one word: captured. But that wasn't the whole story. Welcome back to the Criminal Minds. The first call that morning sounded like a mix-up. Who leaves a baby like that? Neighbors stepped outside, stunned. Within hours, detectives were combing 2 different scenes 45 minutes apart. Same day, same family. A mother and father, a grandmother, a teenager. A chain of loss big enough to break the rhythm of an entire county. The picture of the 15-year-old in an obituary would surface later, making the timeline feel heavier. Law enforcement moved fast. They didn't just identify a suspect. They started warning that he might be armed and deliberate. Every update carried a knot in the stomach. If he's desperate, what happens when officers catch up? And then a new piece of video came out. Sunday night footage, posted by police. A man in camouflage with a backpack tries a door at a church. He's carrying a rifle with what looks like a drum magazine. High capacity, built for sustained fire. No words, just the quiet scrape at a handle. In the daylight, that clip traveled fast. The message landed hard. If the pursuit ended face-to-face, it could get loud. The fear wasn't cinematic. It was practical. This suspect had already been linked to 4 lives taken, and now he looked prepared to force a confrontation. Officers increased pressure, but played it smart. But when the break finally came, it didn't look like a movie at all. A worker out on the job sees something off, a shape moving where nobody should be, and calls it in. While he's still on the phone, units are already closing. Minutes later, the photo that ends a week of not sleeping hits the feed. Cuffs on, head low, no rifle in sight. He wasn't armed when they got him, officials said. Relief mixed with disbelief. People had stayed inside all week, flinching at every rumor. And yet, the suspect hadn't fled across states or vanished into big city noise. He was right there, near the place he knew best. A retired detective watching from afar said it simply: when you're broke and running, you don't get far.
Saw the guy walking in the middle of the wood.
Thank you.
And we thought, like, nobody wants to walk in the middle of the wood, in the middle of this stuff. So we was kind of like very sure it was the guy. So I called the police immediately when the guy was walking right there, and kind of like give them the location and everything.
For days, officials only said there was a family connection. Then they gave the first hard link. He allegedly took the lives of his girlfriend's mother and sister among the 4. No motive shared, no statement released about why. Just a stark outline of relationships that should have meant safety and trust, and a scene that said the exact opposite. The suspect's own family released a message pleading for him to stop running. Devastating. A man identifying as his father said the possibility their son did this, urging him to surrender and end the fear. That plea didn't change the past, but it probably saved someone from another terrible headline. And once people heard the names and connections, another layer of the story began to matter. This wasn't a blank slate suspect. Court records showed he'd done more than 10 years for pointing a gun in a clerk's face during a 2013 robbery that netted $44 before he was caught. A district attorney later noted 25 disciplinary write-ups in prison, ranging from defiance to drug possession to a weapon behind bars. He walked out of prison in September 2024. And on the day this tragedy began, he was free on a $30,000 bond from an attempted murder case tied to an in-prison incident. People looked at those numbers and asked the obvious: how is that bond so low? It's a complex legal maze, different jurisdictions, different timetables. But on the street, it sounded like a system that blinked at the wrong moment. And there was more chatter, uncomfortable chatter. As news crews dug, a retired detective spoke about reported gang ties learned behind bars, the kind of protection people sometimes take on inside and shed, or don't when they get out. There were also those earlier social photos from prison floating around, alcohol, phones, even gaming. Contraband that raised eyebrows about how porous a maximum security can be. None of that proves motive. None of it explains 4 lives lost. But it paints a picture of a man who kept trouble close and let it follow him home. Police didn't arrest just one person this week. 4 more were taken in for allegedly helping him while he hid. They're being held without bond. If prosecutors can show they knew exactly what had happened and still assisted, that's not loyalty. That's a felony. And yet, the strangest contradiction is the one people can't stop talking about. He left the child alive. That single decision has been read a dozen ways. Panic, a flicker of compassion, or plain calculation because a baby can't testify. We don't know. We might never know. But that image of a car seat on a porch will outlast a mugshot for the people who live there. It's a thing a community will bring up when the court dates move slow and the legal language gets dry. It's the thing that makes neighbors pause before they turn in at night. A retired commander put it cleanly. There are stone-cold sociopaths who feel nothing, and there are career criminals who, once that first line is crossed, try to erase every witness. Which one is he? The courts will have their say. But there's one more angle, maybe the hardest one, for officers who took him in without any more bloodshed. The adrenaline dump is real, and so is the weight of 4 funerals. For a child who lost parents, a grandmother, and an uncle in one day, closure is a word adults say to feel better. For the rest of us, questions about bonds, prison security, and the way help can appear for the wrong person linger. The arrest was part 1. The investigation and the prosecution are parts 2 and 3. However it unfolds, this case is already a lesson in how fast quiet lives can be broken, and how a dozen small decisions by a dozen different people can shape a tragedy. A lot of stories end with a perfect answer. This one ends, at least for now, with a custody photo, a silent church door, and a porch where a stranger did the right thing for a child who didn't understand the danger. What do you make of that choice at the center of it all, the baby left alive? Was it mercy, calculation, or something we can't name? Drop your thoughts below. And if you want more deep dives where we cut the noise and follow the facts, hit subscribe. I'll be in the comments reading everything.